Hi everyone, Byron Martin here at Logis, and one of the most critical parts of successful growing of plants and container plants or house plants is the watering cycle. Beyond light, it is the thing that will bring success or failure to any gardening endeavor. Some plants can handle tremendous amounts of water. We have an example here of the Venus flytrap, and it is actually a bog plant native to the southeastern United States. This one actually likes to sit in water, and so you don't ever have to think, does it need water? If the saucer is dry, it needs water. And the best thing when you're growing carnivorous plants, which are many of them are bog plants, is to make sure you use either rainwater or distilled water because they're very sensitive to compounds that are in city water. And then there are other plants, like the air plants, which we have a tillandsia here. These really only need to get water from the air, and they benefit by misting. But if you want to go away, they're going to be fine when you get back. Very easy to grow. They do like to be in a fair amount of light, so hang them in a bright window. Then there are plants that are epiphytes, and we have our orchids here. This is a Phalaenopsis, and we have a Hyloceras. This is one of the climbing cactus. So the key to watering these epiphytes is to make sure there's some dryness. Now with orchids, this is in orchid bark, you can't see whether it's dry or not. And so the best thing to do is to put it on a weekly schedule of a thorough saturation of this potting mix, which is orchid bark. If they're in sphagnum moss or coconut coir, you actually have the ability to stick your finger in it and actually feel the amount of moisture or look at the surface. And you want to bring all of these epiphytes to the point of dryness or almost dryness between watering and then thoroughly saturating it. And whenever we water plants, we want to really soak them up and let some water run out into the saucer below, not just half water them, in which the water goes down halfway through the pot and the remainder of the root ball is dry. Then we have plants which we grow in the house in a sunny window like this Bergmansia. This is pink pastel, which is one of our more dwarf forms. These have a very high water demand. They transpire, meaning that the leaves are letting off tremendous amounts of moisture, particularly under heat and sun, and you gotta keep your eye on them. It doesn't hurt to put them into a wilt. My dad always taught me to wilt a plant a little bit is better than overwatering, but you gotta really keep your eye on them. These are the kind of plants that you need to be on the ball, making sure that they're kept watered on a regular basis. And then we have plants like this Monstera. These are plants where you want to water visually by the surface of the soil. Instead of using a water meter, just use your eyes. Now this plant right here is beginning to need water, and it has, if you look at the media that it's being grown in, it has changed from a dark color wet to a lighter brown dry. And that is the point in which this plant needs a drink. But when I look at it, the light color of the soil is still the light color that's in the bottom here, and this is the almost dry state. I can feel moisture. The plant isn't under stress, but it's allowing air to get down into that root system. And people don't realize that leaves transpire and they also breathe. The roots also breathe too. There's an exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen in the soil. And that's why we want to let the pores of the soil open so that exchange happens, keeping the roots healthy and keeping the plant vigorous. But we also need to make sure that we're giving it enough water so it doesn't go into severe stress. Begonias are plants that, these are the cane or the angel wing begonias. These are mostly terrestrial in their growth, but a lot of begonias are semi-epiphytic or even epiphytic, and those can take tremendous amount of dryness. And then we have to look at where the plant comes from. So these are tropical plants. These are New World tropics, many of the canes and fibrous. And they go through a dry season. I mean, really dry. It doesn't rain for months. And they thrive. And so we need to remember that they, even though they're bushy and green and so on, they can handle a lot of that dryness. It's better to grow them on the dry side rather than on the wet side. They'll be much happier for that. Matter of fact, in the greenhouses here, when we're watering, got a hot day and we're real busy, the begonias are the last things we look at. You also got to remember that some plants don't like water on their leaves, particularly gesneriads, but also our Anthuriums. They'll stain, and that is caused by cold water on the leaf under warm temperatures. So it's really the temperature of the water the temperature of the leaf, and it needs to be very close to one another. It doesn't stain the leaf when the sun is out. If it's dark, you can put anything you want on them, but in the sunlight, you want to make sure that your water is tempered when you're watering certain plants, of which Gesneriids, that's the African violets, and as I mentioned, the Anthuriums. You also have two options to watering. One is to top water, let the water pass through, you give them a drink, or you wick water from the bottom. I'm not a fan of wick watering, mainly because all the nutrients are going up. And if you're feeding your plants, which I hope you are, those nutrients can accumulate at the top of the pot. And so they really need a leaching. You can do it, but you got to remember that you can accumulate too much fertilizer there, and then you'll lead to leach, which is the other way, pushing water down through the pot so it washes out any of the fertilizer salts that have accumulated. And then there's the water quality. Water quality is kind of tough. Many of us live on municipal water supplies with chlorine and sodium in it. If you're having trouble with your plants and you can't figure it out, go to distilled and rainwater just as an experiment to see if that straightens it out. So we have questions like, what's the best pot to use for watering? And the answer is most anything will work if you water that plant properly. We like clay here at Logis for certain plants. Clay dries out quickly. The moisture is being wicked up by the plant and it's being released by the clay itself. That's not glazed clay, that's just regular terracotta. However, plastic has an advantage. It's inexpensive, it's not heavy, and many plants do really well in it, as well as they would in clay. But it's really about how you water in terms of bringing it to dryness. If it's plastic, do that. If it's clay, do that. If you've got a plant that has root disease problems like citrus, grow them in clay. You'll find out that they'll be a lot happier. But generally, anything will work as long as you water it properly. So the question is, should I water or miss my foliage? And basically, the answer is no, if you don't have to. And if you're in a home situation where you've got dust accumulating, sure, wash it off. But misting the plant to try to bring the humidity up in a low humidity home really doesn't do much at all. It just evaporates and the low humidity simply comes in. Misting under really moist conditions can cause diseases on certain plants, so it's really a good idea not to do that unless you're trying to clean the leaves off. And if you're in your garden or you're on your patio and you've got a hose and you're watering and you're sloshing water around on the leaves, if you got to do that, do it during the height of the day or in the morning when the leaves can dry off before they go into evening. We always try to keep our foliage dry going into those long dark periods where you can actually initiate disease problems. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel.